After e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, the Rossolimo is happening, a6. Now we know we have to take the knight. In the previous videos we went through pawn takes, the b pawn takes, and then everything that happens next. Let's see what happens when black takes back with the d pawn, opening the fight for the queen and the diagonal for the bishop. Looks like a very good option, and it is. So now we go on with d3. Okay, so we're going to look at two options. One only briefly, which is g6, and the other one, the one with bishop g4, which is the main move. The thing about the one in g6, we're going to look at it briefly, just a line that we haven't seen at all, because it's likely to be transposed from another Rossolimo, which is the one with obviously bishop b5 attacking the knight, but with black just playing g6 straight away, which is the main move, by the way. And after take, the bishop going to g7, there's loads of positions that arise that are exactly the same. So let's just make this mention. Now you go on with castling, bishop g7. And this is basically, you see what's happening here, like this is from taking it from the start. When black plays g6 straight away, we know that, you know, as mentioned in one of the previous videos, in the other saga, the one with bishop g7. Here, after bishop g7, you take the knight, they take with d pawn, and it's exactly the same position, except, well, you play d3, and then there's a pawn in a6, so it's a transposition. But the thing is that black is not likely to just play now a6 all of a sudden. So, but the position is kind of, similar, and the approach that you will have to apply is also similar. So I'm going to mention it here. But for more information on how to defeat the g6 Rossolimo, then go and watch the other videos. So, okay, a6 is here. Now you carry on with exactly the same plan, a4, a5, that type of idea. Knight f6, a5. So usually we'll play this plan when our opponent has a pawn in a7, but also when they have a pawn in a6. So remember the patterns. Okay, castle, knight d2. And now we're going to look at bishop e6. This is in order to put more attack over this square, c4. Because we're threatening to try and go to c4, right? And, okay, so we play queen e1. h6 now, stopping knight to g5 from happening. Okay, well, knight to e5. And now we should be able to conquer the square c4 without problems. If our knight gets challenged, let's say knight d7, just take it. Take, believe it or not. Now you don't have access to c4, but you have created your own access to c4 with this. So the rook is now, the game is so close and so boring and so stupid that basically you can afford this type of move, like rook a4. Okay, rook a to d8, continuing development. b3. Let's look at two options now. One of them is f5, trying to break the center, use the f pawn to take the e pawn, develop the rook being on an open file. Okay, well, take. Rook takes back. And now rook to e4. So we have transferred the rook like this. It's a weird game. Bishop to d5 attacking the rook looks like a good move. Then simply rook to e7, obviously. So that's not possible. And you're gonna play rook e7 no matter what. So you're winning this game. So in this position, what if instead of f5, black plays bishop to c3 to make an example, pinning the knight, queen e3. That's it. So that's just a stupid move. If the bishop goes back to g7, then you play bishop to a3. You're putting attack on this pawn, and that's it. You've got double attack on that pawn. So that's one of the plans we're gonna make. If we were gonna attack the queen, was gonna go to e3, and the bishop to a3, attacking the pawn in c5. That pawn is undefendable. The black player will have to play bishop back to d4, which is silly. Now you can take the pawn in h6. You're completely winning advantage. So that was just the brief mention to that line, which is some sort of transposition into the g6 Rossolimo. So let's just now go to the main topic of the video. a6. Okay, take, and now black takes with the d pawn. Okay, we play d3. And now bishop g4. h3. Attacks the bishop immediately. That's the move to remember. So let's go back here and see how to continue. Bishop to e3. Attacking this pawn. And now we're going to look at a few options. For example, let's start with this one of the most popular, c4. Saving the pawn, and obviously the idea is to take, and then black gets to isolate our pawn. So what we do is we take it. We don't care about queen d1. King takes back, long castle, because our opponent was far away from castling. So he just castles, comes with check. Okay, knight to d2, develop. e6, developing the bishop. g4, this is another forced move. Bishop g6, knight e5. Now it's beginning to seem like some sort of Caro-Kann type of game. The knight in e5 is sitting very well. If the knight were to be attacked, let's say pawn to f6, or you might think, okay, well, probably with a piece, you know, our opponent will be happier to attack, to develop. This doesn't make a difference. You're still gonna take the bishop, right? And then pawn takes back, and I just play king e2, and you go up. You're up a pawn in this endgame, so you're much better. You're gonna be pushing this majority on the queen side. There's no compensation. Position evaluated almost +2, like the engine loves this. It's a winning endgame. If your opponent does that to you, then it's just good for you. So let's look at this move here, f6 instead of bishop d6. Like same things, pawn takes, knight takes, pawn takes, and now king e2, right? So let's look at this, g5. Now white goes on with e5. So obviously a move like f5 here seems to be making sense, but you just play knight f3, and you're just better because you got double attack on the pawn in g5. A move like f4 only saves things for the moment, because you can play bishop b6, for example, attacking the rook, and then you have an attack on g5, so you're winning material. So f5 is just wrong. What if black plays bishop to b4? Okay, well then we have to save the knight. We don't want that trade. Rook to f8, rook a to d1. And now the idea is c5. For example, a5, just to make an example, right? c5, the bishop is trapped. So we're gonna just be able to play a3 and then win the bishop. If, let's say, black plays bishop to a5 to get out and you know, allow normal development. Remember, our opponent can never take the pawn in e5. It will damage their own structure. You got to attack on g5, and then this knight becomes a bit silly. Bishop to c5, attacking the rook. Rook back to d8. We'll have to admit it was a mistake, waste of time. Rook to d8. King takes. Rook d1 check. We're leaving this pawn unguarded. It doesn't matter. King moves, and now you play b4, right? The king didn't really have anywhere else to move without disaster, because the knight was going to infiltrate, going knight to d6. Bishop to b6 now. Take. Rook to d7. And that's it. Black, having played the most accurate moves in a faulty variation, leads to a loss no matter what. Okay, development. Knight h6. Can't develop anywhere else, and you don't want to get it pinned. Knight to c5. Threatening checkmate. So after rook to b8 defending that, rook g7, the game plays itself. So let's take it from the start. You know, it's the Rossolimo. It's not the usual sharp, crazy variations that you used to see on this channel. But you have to know what to do against it. I mean, it's not against it. You are playing the Rossolimo. You have to know what to do against the classical Sicilian. Okay, well, take back with d pawn, d3, bishop g4. Attack it immediately. Bishop h5. Bishop e3. Going for an attack on this pawn straight away. So we went through what happens after c4. Okay. Let's make a very quick mention of queen to b6. Defends the pawn, but also threatens to go to b2. Right, so you just develop. Knight d2. You got nothing to worry about this pawn here. Queen b2. Now you play g4, as usual. Bishop g6. Rook to b1. The queen will have to move. Queen takes a pawn, so you are down a pawn, but you know, you take this one in b7, you're completely fine. Knight f6 developing. Look at black's development. Black has got only 2 pieces playing. The white king is completely safe, and black will have to quickly do something about the lack of development, because the king needs the castle and definitely can't castle this side. I mean, basically black king castling here is technically possible, but like, I mean, come on. Okay, so well, now knight e5. Rook to c8 to stop us from taking the pawn in c6. Okay. Well, now this knight goes to c4. e6 to develop the dark square bishop. Pay attention to how useless this bishop in g6 actually is. Castle. The bishop can't really go anywhere that makes sense. Well, maybe e7. But then rook b2 traps the queen. The queen's got nowhere to go except a4, but then knight b6. And now we're not trapping the queen maybe, but we are winning a free rook. So in this position, what happens after h5? This looks like a very reasonable move. You know, the usual idea of opening the file for the rook, especially considering that our king is in a very wild castle. So let's close everything, close the deal, g5. The knight has to move, knight moves, and now knight takes this bishop, pawn takes back. Everything is completely closed for the black player here. Can't move a thing. Position evaluated, what, like +7 or something, I don't remember. Queen f3 now, threatening the inevitable. Which leads us to another recap, but this time we're going to play pawn to b6. So a6, attacking immediately the bishop, take. D takes d3, bishop g4, h3, bishop goes back, bishop e3 attacking that pawn. What happens after b6? And now it looks like black doesn't have to worry about anything. But remember, black is far away from being able to castle normally. Okay, what to do now? g4, bishop g6, knight to d2. Let's look at two ideas here. If black plays h5, the idea obviously of, you know, just like before, open the file for the rook. This is the only way to develop. And black says, you know what? I'm not going to castle in this game, so I might as well develop the rook like this. It's absolutely fine to do so. And the move g5 doesn't come with a threat. After h5, you play knight e5. And after taking the bishop, pawn takes back. And then if our opponent is taking stuff from us, we can take back with the queen. We're threatening to go here to g4, completely winning position. So obviously, black will have to do something else. Queen to d6 makes more sense. Also because retreating the bishop means that the pawn in h5 was free. So queen to d6 defends the bishop. Knight d to c4 attacks the queen. Queen e6. f4. Threatening f5. So let's make an example. Rook b8, whatever, right? f5 is the best move. That's it. You're just winning material. So bishop h7 in this position, does it save the game? No, because f5 attacks the queen. The queen will have to go away. Obviously, f6 is not possible because you play g5. So the queen will, let's say, I don't know, queen c8. The same thing. Best move is actually g5 here. The idea is to play queen h5. Position evaluated +7, by the way. Black can't develop anything. If he plays g6, just maybe try to develop the bishop from the fianchetto, or maybe simply defend the pawn in h5. You just take this one. And after the pawn takes back, this bishop doesn't play this game. He's out of the game. Exiled. Like Napoleone Bonaparte. But either way, the next move, the best move would be knight to b6, winning material. And if black had taken with the bishop instead of taking with the pawn, looks like this bishop is now more active. So we take it, right? You know, we've basically closed the file for the rook. And yeah, position still evaluated like +6, +7 or something. Because, I mean, yes, you're winning the exchange like this, like knight b6, win the exchange. But it's not just that. It's also the fact that black king can never be safe. And you're going to play queen f3, castle long. The rooks are well connected. Black's pawn structure is absolutely unacceptable. It's got 4 islands of pawns. Only one of them is connected. Now we're looking at this move b6. Now we're also going to look at e6. It seems like the main move, the best move to defend that pawn and develop the bishop. We're going to look at it in a minute. b6, defending that pawn. As we just mentioned, we played g4. Bishop has to move. Knight to d2. And we went through h5. Looked like a reasonable idea, but it didn't work. What happens after knight f6? Okay, punish it immediately with g5. Tell the knight to come back to where he comes from. So now 2 options. Let's say knight to h5, trying to remain developed. Okay, knight e5, usual move. Queen to d6, protecting the bishop. Now here the best move is f4 straight away, which is unexpected, considering that the knight can go to g3, the bishop will be able to go maybe to h5 with an attack on the queen. f4 is the best move though, so let's see. Well, okay, knight to g3 now is not good, because the knight is trapped. I mean, no, you could just play this move, right? Rook g1, attack the knight. And the knight will have to go back to h5, so it's kind of pointless. Unless black goes bishop to h5, attacking the queen. But then knight to g4, and now the knight is trapped. Taking the knight doesn't work because you take back with the pawn, the black knight remains trapped. It's completely useless in there. So here after f4, what happens after black just plays e6? Okay, queen f3, develop. Bishop e7, still developing, and now knight d to c4, attacking the queen. Queen to c7, keeping an eye on b6, and staying developed. f5, finalizing the attack. There's already no coming back here. If black plays castle to kind of compensate maybe for the loss, this is still okay. Just take the bishop. Pawn takes back, it's an attack on the queen. Queen to g4, attacks, puts pressure on e6, and you're up a piece. There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. So don't worry about that type of sacrifice. So in this position, after f5, what if black counterattacks? Let's say b5, attacking our knight. You still take the bishop. It's a bit surprising. Well, not much, actually, because you're attacking the knight. So pawn takes your knight in c4. But the best move, actually, queen f7 is the most accurate. King d8, and now queen e6 is the strongest move because it threatens knight f7. So even better than taking this knight. And going back to this position, remember when black now has decided to develop the knight to f6 and you attack it straight away with g5, we went to knight h5, we realized that the knight is actually misplaced. What if the knight goes to d7? This looks like a much more reasonable square. Okay, knight to h4. Also because we can't play knight e5, right? So we're going to attack the bishop and just take it. What can our opponent do? Let's look at this idea. Well, e5 or e6. Let's say e6. Okay, queen to g4. To put more attack over the square f5, so you can play f4, f5. So development, let's say bishop e7. Okay, f4. h5 maybe. Attacking the queen. Maybe trying to swap pieces. If we take, then black can, swap everything. Well, actually, just win a free knight, to be honest. Or maybe just develop the rook on an open file. Queen to g2. And now black has a pawn in h5, so the bishop will be trapped after f5 unless he goes back to h7. But then our position gets, is just so amazing. So if you were to do something like this, let's see, f5, take, bishop goes back. Position is evaluated as if white was up a piece or more. So you just long castle. And black's pieces don't play. This bishop can't really go and take that pawn. The bishop cannot take this pawn. So you'll take it from here. And in this position you might wonder, after queen g4, why not knight to e5 attacking the queen? Okay, you play queen g3, attacking the knight, bishop to d6, and now f4. And so basically you're achieving the same thing. The knight will have to go. The only square will be knight d7. Yes, the pawn in f4 is pinned, but you can move the queen to g2, anywhere you prefer. And the plan remains the same. And black pieces actually lose and looking very silly. It's very similar to what happened before. So in this position, after knight to h4, we went through e6 in that idea. What happens after e5? Stopping our f4 attack and still allow the bishop to develop. So e5 looks like a completely reasonable move. Queen g4 comes anyway. And after bishop to e7, now we play knight f5. Threatening to go to g7, win a pawn, or simply win the bishop pair from our opponent. But then we can play h4, h5, h6, and life is just perfect. So castle, what happened now? Okay, h4. We're threatening to trap the bishop, or force the bishop to simply swap with our knight. In which case we keep throwing our pawns against our opponent. f6 looks like you can give a shelter for the bishop. And also counterattack, which is fair enough. Okay, castle. Pawn takes. And we're doing just fine. Position evaluated +4. The idea of the white player is to play knight h4 and take the bishop. Black's best move now, according to the engine, is rook e8. But white goes on with this. Rook h7. Boom! It's an incredible move. There's no Zwischenzug. Black can't just take our knight first and then take this rook or something, because then you can take with the queen. If black takes with the bishop, then you just play g6. Bishop's trapped. You're threatening to take, and then you're going in g7 with a checkmate. If bishop takes, then you're still going to take, and then you're going to the square g7. Yes, you take. The bishop f6 seems like it does everything, but you can pile up so much pressure on that. Besides, you also have knight h6 check. If he moves here, you go here. If he goes here, you got knight here, and you got an attack on the queen, and you can sort that out. And in this position, if king takes, you play knight to h4 very quietly, because after taking the knight, because after taking the bishop with the knight, then you got the rook, the queen are lining up on this file. You should be winning shortly. There's just no coming back now. And if white instead, if you were to play again now, for example, you can say, okay, the king is still protecting the bishop. Obviously, you will just take, and then you got this. So that's the plan you're going for. So in this position here, what if black plays rook f8 to stop that idea? Okay, well then you play rook h1, threatening this cover check, really strong. And we'll close the line here. Let's make a recap. And let's make one last mention, which is the e6 variation. And then we will close this video. So, d3, bishop g4. Attack the bishop, bishop h5, no, bishop e3, attacking this pawn in c5, e6. Okay, g4 once again. Bishop goes to g6, knight d2. Knight f6 looks like the most natural variation, and this is like, you know, black is probably like going to play a normal game. But this advance of the pawns on the king side is so crucial, because black will not castle long side. I mean, we've seen so many options when they do, when black does that. Feel free to watch the other videos. It's very important that you do. And the thing is that in this time, you know, the good thing about the Rossolimo is that the opponent doesn't really have anywhere safe or completely safe to castle. And the moves always repeat themselves. Knight e5, attacking the bishop. Bishop d6. What to do now? In this case, the bishop is free quickly enough to attack our knight that is like, you know, threatening to just, you know, play h4, h5, maybe trap the bishop and so on. Okay, knight d to c4, attacking this bishop and defending the knight. So that's crucial. Okay, castle. Will the black player be able to play a normal game? No, because knight takes, queen takes, and now f4, defending the knight. There's no going through the territory of the white player. Look how amazing this is. The knight is in e5 to stay. It cannot be challenged. Unless black plays knight to d7, challenging it. But you're missing something, right? The knight will play a special move where instead of 3 steps, he will take 2 steps and he will capture the queen. No, I'm kidding. So the knight will just swap. Queen takes, and now what I'm saying is, you know, you got this pawn here, you're attacking c5. You also have f5, idea of f5, trapping the bishop. And white will comfortably win this game. Okay, so in this position, what if black plays h6, giving a shelter for the bishop? Okay, now here is not very good to take, because pawn takes back. Yes, we are isolating the pawn of our opponent, but we're also helping our opponent to develop the rook. We're giving away the best piece we have in this case, which is the knight in e5. It's a very strong piece, obviously. We just go on, developing. Queen f3, rook a to d8. There's no way to infiltrate for our opponent. Queen f2, so that was the plan. Queen f3, queen f2, with a double attack on the pawn in c5. Okay, b6. Does it stop everything? No, because now we castle long. But you can kick this knight away first. So let's see. Let's say, for example, bishop h7. Best move by our opponent. Rook h to g1. We're threatening g5, g6, and so on. Also, we're threatening to take here. Depends on what black will do. Knight to d7, challenging this very strong knight. If black removes that knight, the game becomes completely normal. Okay, well, too late though, because g5. And now, knight e5 comes. But we can take this with an attack on the queen. Queen takes back. And now we can take in h6. We've got a threat on g6 here. It's a really strong move. Best move would be g6 to stop our infiltration. But now rook to g5 attacks the queen. The queen will have to move. If queen goes to, let's say, d6, then we play queen f6, right? So keep an eye on that. If instead our opponent goes queen to h8, this looks like an alpha 0 game. Our opponent has no moves. Rook d to g1 is the move now. And we're threatening just too much. f6 attacking the rook cannot happen because you have the sacrifices available. But you're also threatening h4, h5. And that's it. f6 can never happen. That's it. Whenever that happens, take. And now, okay, where queen blocks would be, you just take it. So obviously king f7. Rook check. King e8. Queen g3. Going to c7. Rook d7 seems to be blocking all that, but obviously you play queen check. Rook blocks. Queen b6. Threatening to go to c6 and ending the game.